If you're running Facebook ads for a beauty dropshipping store right now, your customers honestly do not want to buy your products.
No, they really don't.
Right. Like, if we look at the raw psychology of it, they actively hate being sold to. The second they sense a pitch, that this biological wall just slams down.
Oh, absolutely. It's a physiological response.
Yeah. But, and this is the paradox we're tearing apart in today's deep dive, they are simultaneously biologically wired to pay you to avoid doing work.
It is honestly the ultimate contradiction in modern e-commerce. I mean, we are taught to push features, benefits, discounts, completely ignoring the fact that the person on the other side of the screen is operating on prehistoric software.
Prehistoric software, I love that.
Yeah, they're just conserving energy, protecting their status, and, fiercely guarding their emotional state.
Which makes the typical media buyer's approach look almost ridiculous when you step back. You look at a Shopify dashboard, you check Facebook Ads Manager, and it's treated like this sterile math equation.
Right, like it's just numbers.
Exactly. You think, if I just tweak the lookalike audience, or if I change the CTA button from red to green, my cost per acquisition will magically drop.
It's comforting, right, to treat human behavior as a binary spreadsheet. It's either profitable or not profitable.
Totally.
But direct response marketing is an ocean of psychological muddy waters. You aren't optimizing a machine, You're attempting to interrupt and redirect human desire.
And that is our exact mission for this deep dive. We are speaking directly to you, the listener, out there in the trenches.
In the thick of it.
Right. You are running an e-commerce store. Let's call it beautyhq.store for our examples today. You're in the health and beauty niche. Maybe you're moving high-tech red light skincare wands or those advanced teeth whitening kits.
Yeah.
You don't need another generic tutorial on how to set up a Facebook pixel. You need a tactical, fluff-free master plan to convert those really sleeting, skeptical ad clicks into actual buyers.
And to build that master plan, we are pulling exclusively from a massive, incredibly dense manual by Aylin Soltanic.
Yes, the Copywriting and Marketing Mastery System.
That's the one. And we need to set the baseline immediately here. This is not a traditional marketing guide, at all. It is a master class in deep psychology and belief shifting.
Soltanic introduces this massive paradigm buster right on page 1. I mean, for 50 years, the golden rule of advertising was that marketing is salesmanship in print.
Right, the classic definition.
But Soltanic argues that definition is totally dead because people love to buy, but they violently resist being sold. So the new definition, marketing is change work.
Change work. I mean, if you internalize nothing else today, internalize that exact phrase.
Change work. So before someone even hovers their thumb over the Add to Cart button on beautyhq.store, you have to change what they think, what they feel, and, most importantly, how they view themselves.
The credit card swipe is just a lagging indicator that the change work was successful.
A lagging indicator, wow. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, and to effectively execute that change work, we have to travel way further down the human operating system than most marketers are comfortable going.
For sure. Most media buyers play entirely in the sandbox of psychology, right? They look for surface-level cognitive biases.
But Soltanic introduces a hierarchy of influence that forces us deeper. He states that sociology controls psychology, and biology controls sociology.
So biology is the climate. Psychology is just the weather.
Exactly. Every single purchase, every late-night impulse buy, it all traces back to 4 core biological drivers.
Let's lay those out.
First, survival. Literally, I need this to stay alive. Second, reproduction. How can I become more desirable to a mate? Third, safety and security. How can I protect myself and my resources?
And the fourth one?
Status and identity. Who am I in the social hierarchy, and how do others perceive me?
Where this gets incredibly tactical for our listener is how Soltanic maps these biological drivers to gender dynamics. He notes a really distinct divergence here.
He really does.
Men, biologically and historically, are primarily motivated by the acquisition of status. It's a gaining mechanism. But women, who are obviously the primary demographic for a store like BeautyQ, they are overwhelmingly motivated by security.
And more specifically, the intense fear of losing that security.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I need to push back on this, or at least test the logic. It feels kind of counterintuitive when we talk about dropshipping.
How so?
Well, I get the theory of biological security when we are talking about, say, buying a house in a safe neighborhood or choosing a reliable car. But if I'm selling a $200 LED face wand on Instagram, is a woman really feeling a genuine threat to her security over a $200 impulse buy?
Right.
Like, Are they buying security or are they just trying to look pretty?
What's fascinating here is it's a great pushback, but you have to look at what the transaction actually represents to the nervous system. When a woman gives you money, she is, biologically speaking, giving up security.
Oh, because the money itself is the security.
Precisely. Money is stored energy. It represents safety, resources, a buffer against starvation or disaster. So the very act of reaching for a credit card to buy a skincare device from BootyQ that initiates a deficit of security.
So she is starting the interaction at a biological loss. The friction isn't just, do I want this? It's, is this worth making myself slightly more vulnerable?
Exactly. Therefore, the ad, the product, the entire landing page ecosystem, it all must provide an overwhelming, disproportionate return of security in exchange for those resources.
Makes a lot of sense.
And in the modern world, security isn't just about physical safety, right? For a woman dealing with severe acne or premature aging, her social security, her relational security, her standing in her peer group, all of that feels deeply threatened.
So the physical appearance is inextricably linked to her perceived safety in the tribe.
Yes. The product cannot just be positioned as a tool to look good. It must be framed as the ultimate shield that restores her social and internal security.
It has to feel protective.
Right. The marketing has to make the loss of $200 feel utterly insignificant compared to the immense safety and confidence she's getting back.
That reframes the entire job of the copywriter. You aren't selling glowing skin, you are selling the restoration of her social armor.
That's exactly it.
But, knowing why they're driven by this biology is only step one. We have to translate that into the core message that actually stops their thumb from scrolling past your ad. Which brings us to Sultanic's meta message of modern markets.
This might be the most actionable insight in the entire source material. Sultanic states plainly, we pay not to do things.
The promise of inaction. It's brilliant because it ties directly back to that biological mandate to conserve energy.
Yeah, and he gives these massive macroeconomic examples to prove the point. Look at Ozempic.
Oh, that's a perfect example.
Right. People are not taking Ozempic simply to get skinny. They are paying for Ozempic not to diet. They are paying not to go to the gym at 5 a.m.
Yeah, and look at the entire gig economy. With DoorDash, you are paying a premium not to cook, not to clean dishes, not to drive to the grocery store.
Exactly. Uber is paying not to navigate traffic or find parking. ChatGPT is paying not to stare at a blank screen and do the heavy lifting of research.
So the defining characteristic of the modern economy is the monetization of eliminated friction.
100%.
So if I look at my own hypothetical ad account for Beauty Crip right now, I'm definitely guilty of missing this entirely. Like if I'm selling a teeth whitening kit, my ad probably just says, get perfectly white teeth in 7 days.
Which is what everyone else is saying.
Right. I'm selling the end result. But if I apply this meta message, I guess I'm actually selling the avoidance of labor.
Yes.
So the pivot would be something like, you aren't paying for white teeth. You are paying not to sit in a dentist's chair for 2 hours with chemical trays burning your gums. Is that the mechanism?
That is exactly the mechanism. If you just say, get white teeth, you're in a screaming match with 10,000 other dropshippers making the exact same claim. You have no unique leverage.
It was just noise.
But when you highlight the agonizing labor they are currently enduring, or the labor they assume is required to get white teeth, and you position your product as the bypass lane, you trigger that deep biological desire to conserve energy.
Wow. How does that look for the skincare tech? Like a red light therapy wand?
The angle becomes entirely about the exhaustion of her current routine. You aren't paying for a wand. You're paying not to do a complicated, expensive, 12-step Korean skincare routine every single night when you're already dead tired from work.
So that hits hard.
Right. You are paying to bypass the 45 minutes of applying serums and creams. You must relentlessly message the elimination of friction.
Okay, so we've established that humans will fiercely guard their resources unless you promise them a massive return of security delivered with absolute minimal effort. But if they are paying to avoid labor, what exactly is the tangible thing they are purchasing?
And this is where Sultanic completely detonates traditional marketing wisdom.
It's a massive paradigm shift. Every marketing guru on the internet will tell you, people don't buy products, they buy a feeling.
I've heard that 1,000 times. Sell the feeling, not the feature.
Right, but Sultanic says that is fundamentally incorrect. People do not buy a feeling. Why? Because they already have the feeling before they even pull out their credit card. They spend money to keep the feeling.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Let's slow down and dissect this, because the source uses a phenomenal example about a guy buying a Rolex to illustrate this emotional spending.
Yeah, let's walk through this scene step by step, Because if our listener can map this Rolex experience onto their beauty shoe customer, their conversion rates will fundamentally change.
So let's paint the picture. A guy is sitting at home. He starts seeing YouTube videos, Instagram reels, maybe reads a GQ article about Rolex watches.
He sees celebrities, athletes, successful businessmen wearing them.
Exactly. The algorithm is feeding him the lifestyle, and this creates a psychological contrast. His brain says, they have something I don't.
That contrast creates a sense of lack, and that lack instantly breeds desire.
Right. And the desire doesn't emanate from the stainless steel or the gears of the watch. It emanates from the social status he currently lacks.
Okay, so driven by this lack, he walks into a high-end Rolex boutique. The lighting is perfect. The salesperson is treating him with immense respect.
They take the watch out of the case. He slides it onto his wrist. And then the critical moment happens.
He looks in the mirror. What is happening neurologically in that mirror moment?
In that split second, all those external associations, the success, the wealth, the respect of his peers, they collapse into his present reality. He deems himself in that exact moment as having status.
The dopamine spikes. His posture literally changes.
He has the feeling. He isn't buying the feeling. The feeling is already pulsing through his nervous system.
He is projecting his current state into future scenarios. Like he's imagining walking into the boardroom next week and catching his boss looking at his wrist.
Exactly. He's imagining sitting in a bar and someone noticing the watch. The self is actively selling to the self.
And out of these vivid, self-projected future ideas, his brain starts generating every imaginable logical justification to overcome that agonizing price tag.
It's an investment piece. I can pass it down to my son. I close that big deal. I deserve this. He has already spent his emotions. He has emotionally purchased the status.
So the actual swipe of the credit card for 10 grand isn't to acquire the feeling. It's because if he takes the watch off and hands it back to the salesperson, he instantly loses that feeling of elevated status.
And the loss of the feeling hurts worse than the loss of the money.
That is the ultimate conversion equation, according to Solpanik, right? A customer will only buy when the loss of feeling exceeds the loss of money.
Let's map that mirror moment directly to our listener's Facebook ad for Beauty Shoe.
Okay, let's do it.
The customer is lying in bed, endlessly scrolling. They stop on your video ad. The contrast is immediately established. The model in the video has flawless, glowing skin. The viewer knows their own skin is breaking out. Lack creates desire.
As they watch your video demonstrating the red light wand, their brain uses that video as the Rolex mirror.
If the ad is crafted correctly, they are projecting themselves into the future. They are vividly imagining waking up next Tuesday, looking in their bathroom mirror and seeing clear skin.
They're imagining going to brunch with their friends without wearing foundation and feeling completely secure.
In those 15 seconds of watching the ad, they have the feeling of security. They are emotionally spending.
Yes. So your job as a media buyer is not to spend 30 seconds explaining the microvoltage or the nanometer wavelengths of the LED lights.
Nobody cares about the gears of the Rolex.
Right. You must spend maximum ad real estate forcing them to visualize what the product does for them in their future. You want them so deeply invested in that future state of security that the thought of scrolling past your ad, returning to their current reality, and losing that imagined future is literally painful.
You are handing them the Rolex and threatening to take it away if they don't click.
That is ruthless, but incredibly effective. However, to trigger that emotional projection, your ad has to perfectly intercept the viewer's current psychological state.
You can't talk to someone who is desperately insecure the same way you talk to someone who just wants a minor upgrade.
Solpanik categorizes this into high emotional states versus low emotional states.
Yeah.
And misunderstanding this is why so many beautiful, expensive ads fail completely.
Let's start in the gutter, the low emotional state.
Yeah, these are people who are frustrated, tired, feeling unresourceful, and out of options. In the context of Beauty Q, this is the woman who has tried every cream, every pill, every diet, and still has cystic acne.
When she sees an ad that speaks directly to that low emotion, it doesn't register as marketing, it registers as a lifeline.
The defining characteristic of a low emotional state is the word why. These customers are trapped in a past reflective neurological loop. Why is my skin still like this? Why does nothing work for me? Why am I breaking out again right before this wedding?
They are looking backward, assigning blame, usually to themselves.
Solpanik gives a very specific mechanism here, doesn't he?
He does. You have exactly 90 seconds. If your ad doesn't capture their brain within 90 seconds and break that why loop, They scroll.
You lose them.
You must enter the conversation already happening in their head with a specific pivot. That's why this is happening. But it's not your fault. And here's what you can do about it.
It's not your fault. That is the release valve for the low emotional state. You absorb their blame.
Conversely, you have the high emotional state. These customers are generally happy, energetic, and just looking for an edge.
They aren't wallowing.
No, their primary operational word is how. They are relentlessly solution-focused. How do I get my teeth 3 shades whiter before my beautification? How do I get that specific glass skin look?
So they do not want a tragic, long-winded backstory about the founder's struggle with acne. They want a punchy, direct path to the result.
Exactly. But how do we actually construct these ads? What is the architecture behind moving someone from these states into a buying decision?
This brings us to the mechanism of fear and desire. According to Sultanic, fear is simply the brain's lack of capability to deal with an impending loss.
The brain searches its database for a solution, comes up empty, and spirals from anxiety into fear and then panic.
Right. To cure this fear, Sultanic outlines a very specific sequence called the capability chain.
It moves through 5 distinct stages. Insights lead to knowledge. Knowledge leads to competence. Competence builds confidence. And confidence finally results in capability, which eliminates the fear.
Let's apply this capability chain to the woman in the low emotional state with severe acne. She lacks the capability to stop the breakouts, so she is terrified of losing her social security.
This raises an important question. How do we script the Facebook ad cadence to walk her through this chain?
Walk us through it.
For a low state, the ad cadence must be an emotional roller coaster. You open low to match her state, a relatable hook validating her frustration. Are you exhausted from trying 12 different serums that just leave your skin inflamed?
You've matched her reality.
Then you take her up by delivering an insight. Recent dermatological studies show the root cause isn't oil, it's a specific biofilm bacteria.
Insight turns into knowledge. Now she understands the enemy.
Then you bring her slightly down again. And unfortunately, traditional face washes literally cannot penetrate this biofilm. You are attacking the alternatives.
Then we take her back up to close on a high note with the product. But this specific red light frequency disrupts the biofilm structure in 3 minutes a day.
Exactly. You gave her insight, which became knowledge about the biofilm. That gave her competence to understand why her old washes failed. Seeing your wand gives her confidence, and buying it gives her the capability to finally control her skin. Open low, take up, bring down, close high.
That is a masterfully engineered script. What about the high-state customer? The one prepping for the beach vacation?
Totally different architecture. You focus entirely on the how. You keep it short, fast-paced, and highly aesthetic. Here is exactly how you get vacation-ready skin in 5 minutes a day.
You deliver the knowledge and competence immediately.
But here's the trick. Instead of opening with fear, you place the fear at the very end.
Wanka fear, like FOMO.
Yes, the fear of missing out or the fear of suboptimal status. Don't be the only one in your group photos hiding behind filters. Get the wand today. You inject a tiny dose of social fear right next to the call to action to push them over the edge.
Okay, let's look at the funnel. The Facebook ad has done its job flawlessly. We matched their emotional state, we gave them the promise of avoided labor, we forced them into the Rolex mirror moment, and they clicked.
Now they're on your turf.
Exactly. They're transitioning from Facebook to the beautyhq.store landing page. The momentum is massive, but it is incredibly fragile. The landing page has milliseconds to catch that momentum by building trust and shifting their underlying beliefs.
And this is exactly where 90% of e-commerce stores hemorrhage money. They treat trust as a monolithic checkbox. They think, I'll just slap a row of 5-star reviews and a secure checkout badge under the price, and boom, they trust me.
It's never that simple.
Sultanic dissects the concept of trust into what he calls the trust architecture, identifying 4 wildly different types of buyers.
Let's break these down, because understanding who's landing on your page dictates how you design it. Type 1, the automatic trust buyers.
These people make up roughly 5 to 10% of the market. They are highly suggestible. They see a good ad, they believe the claim instantly, and they buy. They will fly through your funnel in 2 minutes.
They are the dream demographic for quick cash flow. But Sultanic attaches a massive warning label to them. Because their trust is automatic, they are utterly disloyal. They're easily convinced by your competitor's ad tomorrow.
You cannot build a sustainable, long-term brand purely on automatic buyers.
Then you move to type 2, the repetition trust buyers. These people need to see, hear, or read a claim 3 to 7 times before their brain accepts it as reality. They need multiple angles of verification before they feel safe.
Type 3 is the duration trust buyers. These are the absolute hardest to convert. Repetition isn't enough for them, they require the passage of time.
They need to observe your brand for weeks, months, sometimes a year.
They sign up for your email list and just watch. They need to know you have a history and aren't going to disappear into the night before they hand over a single dollar.
And type 4 are the never trust buyers, the perpetual skeptics who will never buy, so we just ignore them entirely.
Let them go.
But I'm going to put my media buyer hat on here and push back. I hear you on catering to repetition and duration buyers, but I am paying Mark Zuckerberg for clicks today. My ROAS, my return on ad spend, is calculated today.
Right, the daily pressure.
If my landing page is 10 miles long, packed with repetitive proof and deep brand history just to appease a duration buyer, aren't I going to bore the 10% of automatic buyers who just want to click add to cart and leave? Why not just build a lean, fast page for the impulse buyers?
That is the exact trap that causes stores to scale up to $10K a month and then violently crash. If you only build for the automatic buyers, you are leaving 90% of your potential market share on the table.
Oh, wow.
As your ad spend scales, ad costs rise, and you will eventually run out of cheap impulse buyers. Your customer acquisition costs will eat your margins alive.
So how do you physically design a page that caters to both the hyper-fast impulse buyer and the deeply skeptical researcher simultaneously?
It's an architectural solution. The top of the page above the fold must cater to the automatic buyer. A clear product image, a short headline, the price, and a massive Buy Now button. If they want to transact instantly, get out of their way.
But as the repetition and duration buyers inevitably scroll past that phone button looking for more information.
The rest of the page must do the heavy lifting of shifting their beliefs.
And Sultanic's framework for belief shifting is one of the deepest psychological concepts in the source. He states that a belief is simply something the mind accepts as true. But more importantly, we cannot act greater than our beliefs.
All our limitations, what we will buy, what we will try, are strictly governed by what we believe is possible.
If a customer secretly believes that at-home beauty tech is a scam, or that their wrinkles are permanent, it does not matter if your wand is $20. They will not buy it.
Before someone can buy the how, which is your product, you have to fundamentally shift their worldview to believe the result is possible.
He calls this the possibility to attainability framework. And he mandates 3 proofs of possibility that must exist in your landing page copy.
Let's go through them. Proof number 1. Prove that the result is possible in the world.
You have to show them that the circumstances of reality have changed. For a Beauty Q device, you don't start by pitching the wand. You talk about the evolution of dermatological science.
5 years ago, clinically proven red light therapy required a $50,000 machine at a med spa. But recent breakthroughs in LED miniaturization mean that exact same wattage can now fit in the palm of your hand.
You've established a new paradigm. The world has changed. Proof number 2. Prove that it's possible for others. It's scientifically possible to climb Mount Everest, but that doesn't mean regular people do it.
You have to prove that normal people are accessing this new reality.
This is where you deploy your user-generated content, your before and after photos, and video testimonials.
But critically, they must be relatable. Don't show an 18-year-old supermodel using the anti-aging wand. Show a 45-year-old mother of 2. The brain needs to see biological peers achieving the result.
But even if they believe it works in the world, and they believe it works for Sandra from Ohio, they still might not buy. Which leads to the linchpin, proof number 3. Prove that it's possible for them.
This is where the conversion actually happens. You have to anticipate and systematically dismantle their specific internal limitations. What resource do they secretly believe they are lacking? Is it time? Is it money? Is it the technical skill to use the device?
They are reading the page thinking, that's great for Sandra, but I work 60 hours a Wendy and I have no time. Or, I can't afford a luxury device right now.
Your copy must attack those limitations directly. Think you don't have the time. This device requires just 3 minutes a day. You can use it while your morning coffee brews. Think you can't afford it. The entire device costs less than a single copay at the dermatologist.
You are walking them across a psychological bridge. They move from, that's an interesting concept, to, wait, I actually have no excuse not to attain this.
So we've caught their momentum. We've built the trust architecture. We've shifted their beliefs so they know the result is attainable for them personally. They are scrolling deep into the page.
But reading isn't buying. Transforming the product from a nice-to-have luxury into a must-have right now necessity is the only way to get them to the checkout page. And this introduces a massive concept. turning wants into needs.
Sultanic quantifies this in a way that should make every copywriter sit up straight. He states that a need has 1,000 times the selling power of a want.
1,000 times. We aren't talking about a 10% bump in conversion rate. We're talking about an entirely different echelon of human motivation.
Let's dissect the anatomy of a want versus a need, because they operate on different biological timelines. A want requires constant logical justification. A need bypasses justification entirely. A want has dozens of alternatives. A need has zero alternatives.
But the most critical distinction, wants are future problems. Needs are present problems.
Exactly. So if we apply this to Beauty-Ec, we cannot sell an advanced teeth whitening kit as a future benefit. If the copy says, buy this today so your smile looks great for family photos next month, that is a want.
It is incredibly easy for the brain to say, cool, I'll buy it in 2 weeks, and they never come back. We have to violently pull that future benefit into a right-now problem.
To execute that, Sultanic talks about the copy hinge. On any long-form sales page or video sales letter, there is a specific hinge point that the entire pitch revolves around. It answers the prospect's most aggressively guarded internal question. What exactly are you giving me in exchange for my time reading this?
Most marketers bury that hinge. They hide it 5 to 10 minutes into a video or halfway down a massive landing page, trying to build endless curiosity. And then they wonder why their analytics showed an 80% drop-off rate in the first minute.
You must move the hinge to the absolute front. In the first few seconds or the very top of the page, tell them explicitly why this page is different, why their past attempts failed, and what definitive outcome they will get by staying. Secure their time immediately.
And as they stay and read, the specific vocabulary you use dictates whether they feel energized or exhausted. Sultanic introduces permissive language and the concept of energy economics. This is fascinating.
It really is. Humans inherently despise spending energy unless survival demands it. So the verbs and syntax you choose must place the entire burden of labor on the product, not the customer.
Let me give you the absolute worst thing you can say on a landing page. With this system, you can learn how to get clear skin. Or, this wand will help you develop a better nightly routine.
Because words like learn and develop imply studying, forming habits, expending calories. The customer's subconscious registers those words as a massive energy expenditure and immediately triggers resistance.
Exactly. You are asking them to do the work. Instead, you must mandate permissive language. This device will allow you to wake up with clear skin. The red light technology will free you from complicated 12-step routines. It will make it possible to.
Do you feel the energetic shift there? The product is a machine doing all the heavy lifting. The customer simply has to grant the machine permission to work by purchasing it.
The product is the employee. The customer is the boss. So we combine that effortless permissive language with Sultanic's formula for transmuting a want into a present-day need. And his formula is aggressively brilliant.
First step.
Yeah.
You put them in a neurological corner where your product is the only escape route. You explicitly remove every alternative function.
You don't just ignore their other options, you systematically hunt them down and destroy them in the copy. You've tried the messy white strips that slip off your teeth. You've tried the harsh charcoal toothpaste that strip your enamel. You've tried baking soda hacks from TikTok. If absolutely none of that has worked for you over the last 5 years, what makes you think it will magically work if you try it again?
The truth is, it won't. This specific LED activation system is the only viable path left.
You are systematically slamming shut every other door they could possibly walk through to solve their problem. And then he says to shrink the customer while making them acutely aware of who they are competing with.
While you are struggling with messy strips and hiding your smile in photos, thousands of other women have already switched to this device. They're using it for 10 minutes a day and walking into rooms with a blindingly confident smile.
You shrink their current reality. You elevate the competition.
Yeah.
You make the feeling of lack acute and painful in the present moment. It is no longer a nice to have later.
It triggers that biological driver of status. I am falling behind the tribe. I need this to restore my rank right now.
Okay, we have engineered a desperate present-day need. But we are entering the danger zone. If you push that need too hard, if your claims become too grandiose, the modern, highly cynical consumer will just bounce.
They've been burned by dropshipping scams before.
Exactly. How does Beauty balance a high-converting, urgent offer without sounding like a late-night infomercial?
This is where we consult Sultanic's ad efficacy matrix. He accurately diagnoses that as more competitors flood a niche and the beauty niche is historically saturated, everyone just starts screaming louder.
They copy each other's hooks, they inflate the claims, and the audience develops total banner blindness to the hype.
He plots the market on a matrix with 4 quadrants. On the horizontal axis, you have realistic on the far left and too good to be true on the far right. On the vertical axis, you have hard work at the top and easy work or no work at the bottom.
Where do most desperate failing dropshippers live? They live in the bottom right quadrant, too good to be true and easy work. They run ads saying, erase 20 years of wrinkles in 30 seconds with zero effort.
And the consumer's brain immediately flags that as a biological impossibility and a scam.
If the entire beauty market is crowded into that hype quadrant, how does our listener position BDQ to stand out without joining the screaming match?
You use the matrix to execute a lateral pivot. If everyone is screaming too good to be true, BeautyQ must aggressively pull back horizontally into the realistic quadrant while strictly remaining in the easy work quadrant.
So instead of erase all wrinkles in 30 seconds, the claim becomes visibly reduce morning puffiness and fine lines in 14 days using the wand for just 3 minutes a day.
Exactly. The 14-day timeline grounds the claim. It's highly realistic, which instantly builds massive credibility. But the 3 minutes a day still promises easy work, satisfying the biological mandate to conserve energy.
You become the one quiet, reasonable, deeply believable voice in a sea of hysterical hype. You cut through the noise with sanity.
And this realistic positioning leads right into the structure of the final offer. Sultanic defines 3 distinct tiers of offers. A good offer is something a prospect would trade money for. A great offer is something they would do anything for, trading both money and significant time.
But an irresistible offer, that is an outcome they would give up everything for: time, money, resources, relationships.
But here's the paradoxical twist that makes it truly irresistible, and it requires finesse to write. You identify the ultimate outcome they would give up everything to achieve, and then you engineer your offer so they don't have to give up anything for it.
Give me an example of how that sounds in the copy.
You would gladly spend thousands of dollars and endure hours of painful injections in a dermatologist's chair to get your youth back. But without having to leave your house and without having to spend more than a fraction of that cost, this device allows you to achieve that exact glow.
Without having to. Those are the magic words. You illuminate the immense, painful cost of the alternative, and then completely remove the barrier to entry for your product. You make your product the path of absolute least resistance.
So now visualize the user journey. The messaging was perfect, the need is established, the offer is realistic yet irresistible. They've scrolled to the bottom of the page. The mouse is hovering literally millimeters over the complete purchase button.
This is the moment of truth. This is the friction point where carts are abandoned. Here is where we deploy the final, most surgical psychological levers in Sultanic's system to eliminate the last microscopic ounce of hesitation.
Because in a marketplace of infinite choices, people no longer just fear losing their money. They are paralyzed by the fear of choosing wrong. It's decision fatigue.
They worry they will buy your BeautyQ device, see an ad for a competitor tomorrow, and feel the agonizing regret of having made the wrong choice.
So the real job of the closing copy isn't just to scream buy now, it's to proactively insulate them from the alternatives and protect them from the negative emotions associated with decision-making. Sultanic introduces 2 frameworks for this: the doubt close and the no regrets close.
The tonality here is paramount. This cannot be hyped up. It must be deeply grounded and empathetic. You explicitly acknowledge their hesitation. You might be sitting there doubting if this will actually work for your specific skin type. You might be doubting if it's really worth the money.
By articulating their internal monologue, you build an immense bond of rapport. You are climbing inside their head and validating their fear.
But then you execute a psychological judo flip. You position the doubt as their enemy, not yours. But you cannot let doubt dictate your confidence, because the frustration you feel right now when you look in the mirror, that is the direct result of listening to doubt.
It's masterful. You make them realize that hesitation is the architect of their current misery, and then you hit them with the no regrets framework. Regret never comes from trying something new. It comes from hesitation. It comes from waiting months, wishing something would change, while knowing you had the power to say yes today.
A year from now, you'll still be staring at the exact same problem, just with more time behind you and less time in front of you. Do you want to keep wondering what if? Or do you want to live with zero regrets and find out? You are manipulating the risk. You make the act of not buying feel like the ultimate painful risk.
And right beneath that incredibly profound copy, they see the buy button. But Sultanic forbids the use of a standard, boring add to cart button. He introduces a microscopic detail that yields massive returns, the micro CTA.
I love this concept. Let's visualize the Beauty Key checkout page. You have your main button. Let's say it says, yes, I want glowing skin now. But right beneath it, in much smaller, subtle text, is a single sentence starting with the word because. Let's brainstorm a few of these.
Because I'm ready for real results, not theory.
Because I deserve to feel confident without makeup.
Because I'm tired of waiting and ready to take control today.
Let me test the logic of this. Why does that tiny, almost invisible string of text have such a disproportionate impact on conversion rates?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it fundamentally shifts the physical act of clicking a button. Clicking Add to Cart is a scary transaction, but the micro CTA turns that click into an affirmation of a deeply held personal belief.
They aren't just taking a financial action, they are declaring why they are taking the action.
It confirms their identity. I am clicking this because I am an action taker who deserves results. It collapses the final shadow of doubt right at the ultimate point of friction.
It's identity-based reinforcement. And right below that brilliant micro CTA is the final safety net, the guarantee. Almost every store has a 30-day money-back guarantee. But again, Sultanic tweaks the syntax to remove a subconscious trap using the guarantee reframe.
This is a critical error most dropshippers make. When you boldly state 100% risk-free money-back guarantee, you think you're comforting them. But the customer's brain subtly finishes the sentence in case it doesn't work.
You have accidentally reminded them of the possibility of total failure right when they were pulling out their credit card.
You've introduced doubt at the finish line. So the fix is remarkably simple. You add 3 words to the end of your guarantee, because it works.
You are protected by a 100% money-back guarantee because it works. Or to layer in social proof, because it's already been proven to work for 3,854 women just like you.
It completely shatters the frame of failure. The guarantee transforms from a timid safety net into a bold, borderline arrogant declaration of absolute certainty. You aren't offering a refund because you expect them to fail. You are offering it because failure is mathematically impossible. It completely neutralizes the final objection.
So let's look at the totality of what we have built for your Beauty Q store today. We abandoned the idea of marketing as a spreadsheet. We started by targeting the deepest biological driver, security.
We framed your top-of-funnel Facebook ad as paying not to do painful labor. We matched the exact emotional state of the viewer using the 90-second why loop to rescue low states and the how loop to capitalize on high states.
We forced them to emotionally spend on the future version of themselves in the Rolex mirror moment.
Once they landed on your page, we shifted their limiting beliefs by proving attainability. We turned their future wants into urgent present-day needs by attacking all alternatives.
And finally, we closed them with a realistic matrix, identity-affirming micro-CTAs, and the because it works guarantee reframe.
It is an absolute masterclass in direct response psychology. You are no longer just dropshipping skincare, tech, or teeth whitening kits. You are meticulously engineering a frictionless biological path for human desire. You are doing change work.
But before we wrap up this deep dive, there is one final critical mirror we need to hold up. It goes right back to the very foundation of Sultanic's system. He stated, "We cannot be greater than our beliefs. All our limits are based on what we believe is true."
We have spent this entire hour obsessively analyzing how to systematically shift the beliefs of your customers so they will buy from you. But what about you?
What about the listener sitting there staring at their Shopify dashboard right now? What invisible limiting beliefs are you holding on to about your own capability to scale this store?
Do you secretly believe you are limited by your ad budget? Do you believe the market is too saturated for you to win?
Because if marketing is change work and you can't act greater than your beliefs, then applying the possibility to attainability framework to your own mind is the most profitable thing you can do today.